I need to move a tin of coffee out the way, apparently. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for praying and supporting me and my family through this journey. It's a privilege to be able to share it with you all. Today we're going to continue our series looking at flourishing communities and what it means for us here to be a community that flourishes together. To be a community where people are seen, are valued. To be a community where God's Spirit is in our midst. Where people get to be the very best versions of themselves, and this sense of vibrancy and life is what we experience as we gather together. To be honest, our heart here at Croydon Hills is to be a place where our community is one that we are flourishing in and where we're all growing in our lives and our walks with Jesus. That's our heart as a community together. So we're going to continue that today. And when I think about flourishing communities and what it means to be in a flourishing community, it takes me to a variety of experiences that I've had. A variety of experiences, and it often personifies itself in the context of teams, what it looks like of being in a team together. Who here has worked in a team? Yeah? A couple of hands. Teams are awesome, right? I love teams, the ability to bounce ideas, to share the load, to support one another, to equally contribute to what's going on. I love teams personally. I thrive in teams. Yet often when we start to talk about teams, that reaction changes a little bit when I say, who here wants to work in a group assessment project? There's groans. I heard groans here. How's that change? Here's some things that people note. What we learn from group projects, a little bit of information, how to work with people, how to do the entire project on my own and how much I hate people. Often when I talk to some of our young adults and stuff in unis and they're like, I've got a group assessment project and I'm waiting to see if the person who's meant to submit it is actually going to do it on time. This idea of working in teams when we is awesome at times. Community is awesome, but it also can be a place where things are really hard. We can be let down, where it hurts if things don't go well. Sometimes when we're in a group of people, we're in a team, it's like we're in the zone, where everything's just working well and everything is going as it should. We're flying, and at other times it seems like we can't get anything to work right. You know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you've experienced that type of experience before. We're going to try something as a group that we've tried a few times, and we're going to rely on technology. So I'm going to invite you to grab your phones. We're going to try to do one of these Mentimeters. If you can scan the QR code, that will take you into it. If you can't do that, you can go to menti, menti.com, and there's a code up the top, which is 4760-6795. 4760-6795. And we're going to look at this question, what helps make teams healthy and work well? See if we can get some answers bouncing in for that. Tim Tams can help teams work well. I would affirm that. Listening, cooperation, having a shared vision. Communication, being present, sharing the load, work ethic, having fun, coffee helps teams work well. Having respect for others, leaders, humility, creating a sense of safety, understanding one another, accepting others' opinions, valuing people. A lot of people saying communication is key, it's staying big. Having a purpose, you know why you're gathering, people putting in effort, a sense of genuine love. Active listening. Be able to have conflict but healthily and supporting one another. As these keep coming in, we can leave that up as people are still submitting things for a moment. There are things that you've mentioned up here that we've put up on this list that are true for a variety of groups and teams, aren't there? Whether they're sporting teams, these things stand true. Whether it's a workplace or a small work team that we're a part of. Maybe it's in how our families work and communicate and operate together. It also happens in like those teams that we're just thrusted into for a moment. It might be like responding to an emergency. I had one of these the other week. I was down at Bunnings and some really kind gentleman tied his dog up to a trolley and left it out the front. And as someone else was walking their dog past, this dog turned and latched onto this other dog and was spinning a trolley around the car park. And this guy's wrestling these dogs and a bunch of us jumped in. And we had to do this sense of shared purpose and vision and unity to be able to support him in that moment. We know that these things are true when it comes to working in teams. I wonder how much of these are true when it comes to living as a church community together. Are these things the same as we gather on a Sunday, as we embark on the mission of Jesus as a community together? There's an author, Scott McKnight, he wrote this book called A Church Called Tove, which this is the idea of good that we see in the Bible, with an interest in what it means for God to not only look at light and say it's good, land and sea and say it's good, plants and say that they're good, sea animals and birds and say they're good, land animals and people say that they're good, but for him, God to also look at our church today and how we live, how we operate, how we represent him and say that it is tov, it is good. Culture is important. The culture in which we live teaches us how to behave, how to think. We learn what is right and wrong, good and bad by living in a culture. We learn our moral intuitions, beliefs, convictions in community, in relationships with others. Culture socializes us into what is considered proper behaviour. For Christians, this is true of our churches as well as society at large. This is some of Scott's reflections on it. Another way to think about this is that who we are as a church is our culture. And what our culture is the true expression of who we are as a church community together. And that whatever that embedded, rooted culture is, it almost becomes irresistible for those around them to be a part of it. The culture that we create as a community together will determine whether we're flourishing as a community or if we're not. So we're going to go to the second mentee question. So we're going to throw that up. If we click across, we should be able to get to it. It'll be the same code. If you can scan again. See how we going, Tom? And the second question will be, so what does a healthy, flourishing church culture look like? You can click over if it works. Hopefully, maybe. And it will come up. You can have a think. You can scan. It's going to be the same code, apparently. Yes, no, maybe. If you click that, maybe an arrow on your keyboard if you've clicked once, Tom. See if it bounces over. No. All right, let's go for live action responses as a church community. We're going to express communication together. What does a flourishing community look like as a church? Let's shout out some answers. Humility. So how we express humility together. Yeah. Vision. What is our vision as a church community? Patience and love for one another. Beautiful. Godliness, commitment. Servanthood. How we serve together and see one another in serving one another. Yeah. Cooperation and growth. How do we grow? How do we cooperate and support one another? Unity. How do we come alongside and work together? Forgiveness when that starts to break. And obedience to God in all that we do. These are some beautiful expressions of what it means to be a flourishing community. We want to be able to experience those as we work, as we gather, as we come together as a community here at Croydon Hills, what it means for us to be flourishing. Scott McKnight goes on to say, in looking at the different cultures, that we can have a toxic, flesh-driven culture, which breeds a lust for power, success, celebrity, control through fear, and an emphasis on authority and demand for loyalty. On the counter to this, a spirit-formed Christ-like culture, on the other hand, nurtures truth, offers healing for the wounded, seeks opportunities to show redemptive grace and love, focuses on serving others rather than being served, and looking for ways to establish justice in the daily paths of life. A Christ-like church culture always has its eyes on people because the mission of the church is all about God's redemptive love for people. As we look at that list, as we look at the things that we shared together, how do we stack up as a community, as we gather? Who do we want to be as the church together here at Croydon Hills Baptist Church? To be able to live up to that, to be one of those groups that's in its sweet spot where we're in the zone and working together, we all have a part to play. Every one of us has a part to play in this. It takes all of us to be centered on God, where we're exalting Him and humbling ourselves, putting Him first. We need to be loving like Jesus, showing Jesus' love to all those we meet in the church and outside, creating a place where everyone is welcome, where we see and accept those who are around us, where we're looking beyond ourselves and making a difference in people's lives and in our world. To do this, it requires all of us. We all have a part to play in creating a flourishing community together. And you know, it's no different when it comes to Jesus' plan and His mission, not just for us as a flourishing church, but to participate in Jesus' plan and His mission in our world. We've all got a crucial part to play. That is the way that Jesus has intended it. It's intended, so you've got a part to play, you've got a part to play, you've got a part to play. We've all got a part to play in this. All are welcomed. All have a vital role. We all have a part to play in Jesus' plan and mission. Paul talks about it like this in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. He says, the human body has many parts, but the many parts make up one whole body. So is it with the body of Christ. Some of us are Jews, some are Gentiles, some are slaves, others are free. We've all been baptized into one body by one Spirit, and we share the same Spirit. Yes, the body has many different parts, not just one part. If the foot says, I'm not part of the body because I'm not a hand, does that make it any less part of the body? And if the ear says, I'm not part of the body because I'm not an eye, would that make it any less part of the body? If the whole body were an eye, how would it hear? Or if the whole body were an ear, how would you smell anything? But our bodies have many parts, and God has put each part just where He wants it. How strange a body would be if it had only one part. Yes, there are many parts, but only one body. The eye can never say to the hand, I don't need you. And the head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. See, Paul is talking quite clearly here. He's saying when the body is working well, it is good. But when something isn't working as it should be, how much does the whole body suffer because of it? I wonder if you can relate to this in your own body. Like, who's had a splinter in their hand or their foot? Yeah? How annoying is that? It's so small, but can become so debilitating. Or a little bit of sand or dust or even an eyelash goes into your eye, and then you can't drive your car, and you're stuck. Or pulled a muscle. And you go, this was so simple yesterday. Just in this week, on Thursday actually, I did my back pretty bad. And when I say pretty bad, it was pretty bad. I've got a pretty good pain threshold, and for me, I was sitting at about a 7 out of 10 in pain. I couldn't get up, I couldn't lay down. I went to the physio that night, and they said that they could hardly tell the difference between my shoulder blade and the muscle next to it. It felt the same, it was as hard as each other. I went to the osteo the next day, and this is a guy who's like a senior osteo, prides himself on, you come and see me once and that's it. And he goes, this is pretty bad. I'm going to have to see you in 5 to 6 days. It was really hard. My back was really out. This spasm meant that I couldn't move or function. I lost the ability to do everything that became normal because one tiny muscle went into spasm and one or two vertebrae were just out of alignment a little bit. See, we're all needed in the body of Christ. We can't turn around to each other and say, I don't need you. Nor can we look at ourselves and be like, it's okay, they don't need me. We all have a part to play. Each one of us has a crucial role. The leaders and those who help serve have a crucial role. Those who are up front and those who are behind the scenes. Those who are pioneers and those who stabilize. Those who are seasoned in life and those who are just cutting their teeth. We all have a part to play. Those who are gifted and those who say, I could never do that. Those who think of themselves as good enough and those who feel like they're written off either by themselves or by others. We're all needed. We all have a part to play. Paul talks about this in terms of a body. But I think if he was talking today with us, he might use the image of a sporting team. Now, many of you would know I like football, hence why Andrew had a dig at me about a Liverpool scarf, because no one would really want a Liverpool scarf. I get up at all hours of the night to watch EPL. I follow it pretty closely. My team's going pretty well this season for these teams who play. They've got 11 players. Each player on the team has a pretty crucial and vital role that all work together so the team functions well. As I said, my team's doing pretty well. We're up near the top of the EPL ladder. We're right in the mix with the Champions League, which is like the playoffs of all the best sides around the world. It's looking to be a pretty interesting and entertaining season. We have a great lineup, great players, good depth, and an awesome strategy. So we're looking pretty good, pretty solid. And the other week we lost to one of the teams on the lowest of the ladder in the EPL. And the reason for this is because at the 30-minute mark, one of our defenders got a red card and got sent off. And we went from 11 men down to 10. That's over an hour to play. And it didn't matter how good our side was or the depths of our players. Without that one player on the field, everything changed. Without one player on the field, the whole team suffered because of it. We've all got a part to play. If CHPC is going to be a flourishing community, we've all got a part to play because we're one body. If Jesus is going to transform Maroondah, we all have a part to play, whether it's in our workplaces, our schools, our homes, our networks. If we're going to see 56.1% of the Australian population, or 14.3 million people, come to know Jesus who say they don't know Jesus, we've all got a part to play. Every one of us is important in God's kingdom. Every one of us is vital. So we shared before, yesterday, the privilege of being ordained into Baptist ministry, which is a massive privilege as part of the discernment journey to have been able to share that with us as a community together. I want to thank the community here for the support, for nominating me towards consideration around ordination. I first started attending Croydon Hills just after Matt Moran started here. I've known Matt for a long time. I previously worked with him down at Phillippa Island. We've known each other in ministry and worked alongside each other for somewhere around 20 years now. After attending Croydon Hills for a year and a half, Andrew asked if I'd be interested in coming on board and doing a student pastor position, which involved mentoring from Andrew and supporting Matt in the internship program that he was running at the time, as well as other pastoral duties and a discernment from the community about, hey, is pastoral calling something that we feel like God is leading me to? The following year, after going through the student pastor program, as a community together here, you called and asked if I would be interested in taking on the Connect ministry position and running our intern program. After a couple of years in that role, we decided to create some space, to which now Cam stepped into that role. And with prayer and discernment, we moved myself from the Connect role into the Transform role, looking at how We can do the internship and other leadership pathways, how we explore faith formation and discipleship across our church community, which involves things like running deeper, looking at how we do leadership training, running the internship and other connection points around mentoring and discipleship strategy and how to support people in that. 2 years ago, the leadership team here nominated me to the Baptist Union as a suitable candidate for the ordination process. This is normally a 4-year process, but with discernment and investment from the church community here and recognition from the BEV, they said, you've gone through enough that we're going to skip the first 2 years of discernment because we've seen that your community has supported you and discerned. So in 2 years, I've gone through the ordination stream, taking extensive pastoral discernment, support, investment, and training from Baptist Union as well as from the church here, and recognising the last seven or so years of being on staff. We've all got a part to play in that journey. Every one of us is important in God's kingdom. Every one of us is vital. And I'm deeply grateful for in my journey and my ministry calling, the role that Croydon Hills has played in supporting and helping discern and encouraging me and my family along the way. I want to thank you for your prayers and support and empowerment and encouragement and the investment in me, Megs, and my family. That has enabled me to serve both here and go through the process. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without all of us as a community coming alongside and supporting. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without Megan either. It's funny in the commissioning and stuff, pray for myself up here as a community and yesterday. But for anyone who's been around church and knows that, it's the whole family that comes along and supports someone in what we go about and do. And the reality is I wouldn't have been able to do it without Megan and the support she had for pursuing a ministry call. Things like reading countless essays that I had to write, putting Zadie to sleep alone and doing the whole dinner, bath time, bedtime routine alone as I was at a meeting or a retreat, running a course or serving in a team. Encouraging me and praying for me when I'm overwhelmed and down. Releasing me to head out and to do another day, a BEV day, a church day, when what she really needed was me to be at home. And then yesterday sits in the congregation and encourages me, along with everyone else who was there. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without her, because we've all got a part to play. Every one of us is important in God's kingdom. Every one of us is vital. We are all needed in order for us to be able to achieve what God has laid before us as a community to achieve. Even if it's encouraging, supporting, cheering on the things that often get overlooked. Yet these are the things that help make us a flourishing community. They're the things that we identified. The humility, the encouragement, the communication, the service, the prayer. We often overlook these things. And to this, Paul says from verse 22, in fact, some of the body that seem the weakest and the least important are actually the most necessary. And the parts that we regard as less honourable are those that we clothe with the greatest care. So we carefully protect those parts that should not be seen, while the more honourable parts do not require this special care. So God has put us in the body together such that extra honour and care is given to the parts that might have less dignity. This makes for harmony among the members, so that all the members care for each other. If one part suffers, all the parts suffer with it. If one part is honoured, all the parts are glad. All of you together are Christ's body, and each of you is a part of it. We are all needed. We all have a part to play. If we bring something of value, that's great. But that value can be in something that's great or in small, because everything is important. Everything is vital if we're going to be a flourishing community and be a part of what God's leading us to. The only real question that remains for us this morning, though, is what is Jesus asking you to do? What is your part? What part do you play in holding and building a flourishing community? What part do you play in bringing about Jesus' mission and kingdom here? Because God has made us all differently. We all bring something unique to the table. We all carry our own passions, our own gifts, abilities, strengths, weaknesses, insights, and experiences, and we need them all. All of them are valuable. Here's something specifically for you to do. So what is he asking you to do? What role are you being asked to play? I'm just going to ask that we can take a moment to pause. I want to ask you to think about that for a sec as we begin to wrap up. What is he asking you to do? What is he calling you to do in this season, in this time? Just take a moment to pause. What is his invitation? And if something's coming to your mind that you think he's calling you to do, what's holding you back from stepping into that? What's holding you back from pursuing that? What is he calling you to do? As we finish up this morning, I want to introduce you quickly to a guy that you may have heard of. He was a follower of Jesus. His name was Thomas. You might have heard of this guy before. He's most famously known as Doubting Thomas because of one moment in his life, one interaction that he had. But this morning I want to say that that wasn't his whole story. That isn't all of who he was. The first time that we hear about Thomas was in this moment when Jesus finds out that his friend Lazarus is dying. And Jesus is like, we need to go to him. But his disciples, they interject. They're like, Master, last time you were there, the people tried to stone you. They tried to kill you. And if we go back now, they will kill you and everyone else who is with you. And Jesus said he's going to go regardless. And then we see Thomas. He turns to the rest of the disciples and calls them to follow Jesus. He says, come on, we said we will follow him. And if this is where he will die, then let us go die with him also. And they all followed. It wasn't the disciples' job to perform the miracle. They didn't have to raise Lazarus. They didn't bring the power. They weren't there to transform lives. Thomas's role simply was to rally the people to follow Jesus. Thomas continued to passionately follow Jesus with the same commitment that he didn't want anything short of the real deal. That's why he wanted the evidence that Jesus did appear. He wasn't going to settle for a second-hand account. He didn't want to sit on the sidelines, but he wanted to play his part and to be a part of the whole story. His story, Thomas's story, finishes with him carrying the good news of Jesus to India, which today 18.75% of all Christians in India can trace the origins of their church and their faith back to Thomas's ministry. 18.75% equals about 4.5 million followers of Jesus in India today. This man who was happy to play his part, to call others to follow Jesus, even if it will cost them their lives. Just the one to have a word of challenge, the one to have a word of encouragement. That was his part. So what part will you play? What's Jesus calling you to? Because we've all got a part to play in building a flourishing community. We've all got a part to play in Jesus' mission in our world. Can I pray for us? Father, I give you thanks this morning that you're a God of invitation that wants to invite all of us to step into where you're leading and calling us. That every single one of us has a role to play in your kingdom, that you don't call any of us just to come and to sit on the sidelines, but we all have a role, whether big or small, and it's all significant. I ask that we see what you lay before us with your eyes, not our own. That we'd learn what it means to be humble and to honor, to step out with boldness and courage, to share the love that you have shared and lavished on us with all those that we meet. Ask that we'll be a people here whose lives are centered on you. That we'll be able to love like Jesus loved. Welcome all that come into our midst and presence. That we'll be able to look beyond ourselves and that we can make a difference in this world with the good news that you've shared with us and transformed us by. I give you thanks for everyone here and ask that your Spirit be upon them and lead them and guide them as we all step out and live for you. I ask this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.